Greetings everybody, and welcome to another musical adventure in time travel. Today you're going to hear 3 live performances on my replica Biblical Kinnor lyre, the lyre mentioned throughout the text of the Hebrew Bible, and also in the writings of Josephus Flavius, the 1st century Jewish historian, who actually witnessed the Levites play their lyres in the Temple of Jerusalem. So these lyres were played along with the other type of lyre in the Temple of Jerusalem called the nevel, to accompany the legendary singing of the Levitical Choir, and they were actually played by my very own, very ancient Levite ancestors. Now that's what I call roots music. The concept of the album is to recreate the sound of the Levitical lyre, the Kinnor. How did I go about trying to recreate this sound? Well, it started off my origins as a klezmer fiddler. Klezmer, by the way, is the traditional instrumental Jewish music of Eastern Europe, which was almost obliterated by the Holocaust, but thankfully survived due to Jewish musicians emigrating into America before the start of the Holocaust and World War II. And thankfully their music, the Klezmer melodies once played in the shtetls of Eastern Europe, has survived, and we have them today. But I was always fascinated as a klezmer fiddler, the origin of these mystical Middle Eastern scales, and the more I researched, the deeper into antiquity they seem to descend. The 3 pieces I'm going to play, the first one is in a mode called the Aharaba mode, known in klezmer as the Aharaba mode, which I think means bounteous love. This mode in turn ended up in klezmer from the traditional singing in the synagogue, which dates back centuries. And the most logical explanation of how these modes ended up in the synagogue must have been an oral memory of the music once sang in the Temple of Jerusalem. And hey presto, when I researched this further, I discovered the work of the late Jewish composer Suzanne Haik Vantoura, who after a lifetime of work in 1976 actually discovered the original 3,000-year-old melodies once played in the Temple of Jerusalem. Incredible how she did this. On the oldest surviving text of the Hebrew Bible, known as the Masoretic text, there were some accents called Te-Amim accents preserved for centuries, whose original meaning was lost after the tragic destruction of the Jewish temple by the Romans in 70 AD. And after a lifetime's work, Suzanne Haik Vantoura had the breakthrough. She realised that these mysterious accents were actually transcriptions of hand gestures denoting an ancient form of musical notation called chironomy, which is still practiced in Egypt today. And in fact it was actually based, besides known by the ancient Hebrews, it was known in ancient Egypt since the 4th dynasty, back to the days of Khufu in fact. Incredible. All details about that in the historical research section of my website, www.ancientlyre.com. Check it out, it's amazing. Anyway, back to the modes I'm playing. This Aharaba mode is in the first piece, which is called Arabatance, or Arabic dance, very Middle Eastern sounding tune I'm going to start the set off with. And not only did it appear, this mode appear in the work of Suzanne Haik Vantoura in her decipherment of the original music of the Hebrew Bible, it also appears in examples of ancient Greek music, where it's known as the chromatic Dorian mode. In short, it's the equivalent intervals as E to E on the white notes of the piano, but with an augmented third, a G sharp. And it can also be heard in flamenco music, presumably coming from the Middle East via the Moors as they invaded Spain. Incredible haunting mode. And the second piece I'm going to play is from the klezmer repertoire, called Odessa Bulgar. Now this is again an ancient Greek mode which is still played in klezmer music, and also features in some of the work of Suzanne Haik Vantoura in her decipherment of the original music of the Bible. And this is the equivalent intervals as D to D on the white notes of the piano with an augmented fourth, the chromatic Phrygian mode. And there is a surviving piece of ancient Greek music which actually features this mode. That's called Tecmessa's Lament. You can hear this on a CD called Musique de la Grèce Antique. And there's also quite a few versions, some modern orchestral versions of this piece on YouTube. Just type in Tecmessa's Lament and it will pop up. Incredible. The final piece I'm going to play is a beautiful Shabbat melody called Oseh Shalom, meaning he who brings peace. And this is in the natural minor mode. The equivalent intervals is A to A on the white notes of the piano. And again, this mode features in some of the work of Suzanne Haik Vantoura, and also in countless traditional Jewish songs sung today, for example, Heini Matov, Hatikva, in fact. Anyway, enough of the ramblings. All details on my website, www.ancientlyre.com. Now just enjoy the music. And please buy my amazing CD from King David's Lyre, Echoes of Ancient Israel, which is available from cdbaby.com, and you can download it and read all the fabulous reviews on iTunes, as well as on Amazon MP3 store. Bye for now.
Thank